Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Graham Spicer, and welcome to OpenMicVO. So good to have so many of you here with us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about home recording. Anything to do with home recording of voiceover is what we're going to be taking questions and providing answers on tonight. A couple simple rules. First of all, if you're not actively participating in the conversation, if you could please mute yourself, just click the little mute microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom meeting window. That way we don't have any problems with feedback and latency and background noise. It'd be much appreciated if you do that. Certainly invite you to unmute yourself at any time to participate, but just keep yourself muted if you're not actually speaking. Second rule is be nice to each other. This group is about being positive. It's about being supportive of the community. The participants tonight are at all different levels of the development of their voiceover career, but everyone here is a professional and deserves to be treated professionally. So if you're brand new to the voiceover business, welcome. And there's no such thing as a silly question. And if you've been in the business a while, hey, remember at one point you were brand new to the business too. Third thing to remember is that we're recording. And the reason I mention this is because we post to YouTube a recording of tonight's event. So just keep that in mind if you provide any sort of personal information, personally identifying information, or any information that might be confidential. So once you see that I've unmuted you, if you could get us started with the first question, perhaps, that would be awesome. Takes a second to do this, so just give me a moment. Once again, tonight we're talking about home recording, anything to do with recording voiceover at home. So anything to do with microphones or audio interfaces, home acoustical treatments, software, recording software, maybe tips and tricks when it comes to software. All of that is welcome tonight. Got about half of you unmuted now. Okay, most people are unmuted now. Who wants to get us started with the first question tonight?
Graham, I have a question.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I had a session with George Whittam and evaluating my recording space, and one of the suggestions that he gave me was to use a different kind of mic. Currently, I am using a large diaphragm condenser mic, and so I ordered on his suggestion, I ordered a different mic, and I actually decided to go with a shotgun mic just to try out. I've never used a shotgun mic before. So I am wondering how different is it than a large diaphragm condenser as far as positioning and how close you are and that sort of thing?
Well, if It was a recommendation from George. It's probably an Audio Technica 875R. Is that a good guess?
Actually, no. He actually did not recommend the shotgun. He recommended trying a couple of other options.
Yes.
One being a dynamic mic, the other being a headset mic. And it's the reason is the sound issues that I have. And I have a lot of house noise that I'm trying to eliminate or mitigate. So it was my I know of other people that use the shotgun mic, so I just thought, well, maybe I should try it. So I'm trying that first, and then I have some other options that he told me about as far as the dynamic mic. Somebody's got some background noise going on. It's kind of distracting.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who that is. Okay, so Paula, you're now using a shotgun mic and you're interested in understanding the differences in positioning and usage of a shotgun versus a large diaphragm condenser. It's a great question. Let's throw it open to the the masses and see if anyone's got some recommendations for you. I know there's some people here that know what they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. So please chime in and let's get some discussion going. Just making a couple notes here.
And this is Gary Lewis from Jersey.
Hey, Gary, how are you tonight?
Doing good, thank you.
Good.
I do have a Sennheiser 416, and I love the mic. The first and foremost, you do not need a pop filter or a pop screen on that. The way I have mine positioned is I have a deeper voice, so what I found when I first started talking directly into it was that my S's were really popping or snapping or spitting, so to speak. And I moved my mic up at about a 30-degree angle above my mouth and pointed the mic right towards my mouth. And I have moved it over to the left. And just, it works best for me because I just played with it, played with it. And that seems to be pretty premium for me, the way I have it set up there.
So Gary, you've got it kind of up at your forehead.
Correct.
Pointed down at you, but it's over to the left a little bit. How far is it from your mouth to the tip of the 416?
Good question. I would say it's not 6 inches. It's more like 10 to 12 inches.
Yeah.
And it seems to do just fine. In fact, I love the mic.
That is what those mics were originally designed to do, right? They were meant to be voiceover mics. They were meant to be capturing sound on a sound stage or out in the field. So
correct. So that's my 2 cents.
And I think that's good advice. Paula, did it make sense to you, and any other questions about it?
I think so. I think that made sense to me. My other question is, has anybody used a dynamic mic for recording voiceover? That was one of the suggestions that George had for me.
So first of all, just to kind of, complete the thought on the shotgun mic, I think the advice that you just got was spot on. Great stuff. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind with a shotgun mic is that it tends to be more directional in the pickup field than a large diaphragm condenser. It tends to be usually they're a hypercardioid versus cardioid, which means that it's really good at picking up information, directly in front of it. But the minute you start moving off axis, you're going to discover some trouble. So the only thing about the shotgun mic, other than what Gary mentioned, is you have to keep your head reasonably still. You can't be bouncing around off axis too much, or you'll hear the gain will kind of, waver in and out, and that's not a good thing. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you.
dynamic mics. Well, dynamic mics by definition are a lot less sensitive. So therefore, they tend to pick up more what's right up in front of them. And I'm using a dynamic mic right here. This is an Electro Voice EV20, which is kind of a common broadcast mic. And I use it here at this desk for the very reason that you're talking about. And that's because I'm not in my booth right now. I'm out in kind of my studio area, which also doubles as my kind of den area. And it's not perfect acoustically by any means, which is why I use a dynamic mic out here. But it's certainly, I would think that would be your least, the least desirable choice, because a dynamic mic really does sound different. It doesn't have the kind of, it's rolled off at the top end in a way that most producers would notice and probably not be terribly happy about.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. I wasn't sure about that one either. I did hear that that you have to be almost like right on top of it because of the gain or lack of gain.
Yeah,
So,
dynamic mics, you have to be, this EV20 right now, I'm probably 3 or 4 inches from the tip of the mic. And that's in a broadcast type situation like radio DJs. They tend to, typically be right up on the microphone. And you need to be, in order to get enough volume for it to, they're very insensitive, and you need to be up on top of them in order to get the kind of gain out of them that you need. It also impacts your choice of preamps or audio interfaces, because where a large diaphragm condenser mic, you might need to, use 50 or 55, 40, 50, 55 degree decibels of gain. With a dynamic mic, you're going to pretty much max out your preamp. You're going to have to turn it all the way up, and that usually adds noise and hiss and things like that. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Emily. Can I contribute to the conversation about shotgun mics?
Please.
Hi there. Paula, I also have been working with George. I'm new to voiceover, and I've only been in it for 6 months, and I have gone through 4 different mics, 4 different interfaces in that amount of time, and I finally have arrived with the splurge of the $1,000 Sennheiser 416.
Wow.
And so I have the shotgun mic, and I have my preamp / interface is the brand new Universal Audio Aero, because I have a newer Mac. Actually, I also bought a brand new Mac, but I was using my MacBook Pro, which was the 2016 version, which had the Thunderbolt 3 cable. So I wanted to have an interface that had that capability.
Okay.
My point is, what I'm getting to is, I was having a lot of trouble with my noise floor with my mic I had before. Oh, and also too, the other dynamic type mics I was having, it was picking up a lot of low frequency noise and rumble. And George did teach me how to go into my DAW, which is Adobe Audition, and he taught me how to erase everything like at the -100 and below. But I was still very self-conscious about the fact that I live across the street from an elementary school. I have gardeners who come 6 days a week in my neighborhood. And so I was concerned about neighborhood noise, and I don't have a proper studio brick or whisper room or anything like that. I have a room surrounded by the heavy producer blankets, and I have 2 layers of blankets that are going in front of my large window. And George says that now the sound in my space is nice and dead, and moving to that $1,000 416, my noise floor just dropped off. I am at -57, -55 most of the time, and even below. So that's my happy story. I ended up splurging for the shotgun mic, and I achieved a quieter space. Or my space, I wasn't getting that low rumble, low frequency. Didn't you mention something about your home and how you were trying to make your noise floor lower? Or did I
Yes.
miss that? Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. And I do have a lot of, we have several refrigerators and other electrical devices that produce that low frequency hum, as well as I have housemates that come and go at all hours of, that are just in general living. And so, of course, the large diaphragm condenser is really super sensitive, and it picks up anything and everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was, yeah. So that's really encouraging to hear. I did get a Sennheiser. I didn't get the high end Sennheiser shotgun, but I'm waiting for it to arrive. I just ordered it a couple days ago. But that's really encouraging to hear that you had such good success with yours.
I did, and I felt like I should have started a little sooner with the splurge for the $1,000 mic sooner, but I guess I wasn't.
It's a big splurge.
I wasn't ready to make that purchase until I had so many iterations of frustration and noise floor issues, mic after mic, and so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my happy story. So I'm just hoping that when it comes time to having a client, and when I'm actually in my booth, it happens at a time when the gardeners aren't right next door, or even at my own home,
Yeah.
That's my question to put out there. How does one deal with home studios, and when something will pop up like that, and with a client and going, oh, hang on, the gardeners are at the house. We just have to deal with the next maybe 10 minutes. How do people deal with that?
That's a great question, and one for the ages, because there's never really a satisfactory answer to it. I've had great success in just being nice to the house across the street right over there was being fully renovated, and they added a huge pool in the backyard. And I mean, it took them 10 months to renovate this house. And I just went over and bought them coffee, a couple times a week, and rolled up with my Tim Hortons, a big tray of Tim Hortons coffees. And I just found, when I went over and said, listen, I need 20 minutes. Can you just, not blow the foam insulation for the next 20 minutes, or not use the nail guns? And they were really quite good about it. Most of these tradesmen realize that, they realize that, neighborhoods need to get along, and that they're usually pretty understanding when, if you went and said you needed an hour and a half of quiet, that probably isn't going to happen. But if you need 15 minutes or 20 minutes, they can usually find something else to do for a few minutes. So
great. Thank you.
anybody else have any experience with the gardeners or lawn maintenance people? And what do you do when you've got a directed session that happens exactly when the neighbor's having their leaves blown?
Graham, I can speak to being a New Yorker and having a closet, not a
Carol?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Yeah, you and I've talked about this before, where living in a suite in Manhattan, it isn't always easy to find a quiet time.
Yes, that's indeed true. Except, generally, even though the city never sleeps, generally it is in the middle of the night, or at least 11 to 6 maybe. But I try to avoid that. Sometimes if I have a book, you kind of can't help it. But with a directed session, I think you just made me realize that one idea could be to just add dampening, blankets that might be uncomfortable for a long project, but that might really help reduce those sirens or whatever it is that we deal with.
Bev Standing, who's she's awesome. She's a voice actor here in the Toronto area, actually.
Yeah, I know her. I love her.
Yeah, she's awesome. Started with a $120 mic for the first 6 years, and if you know this, you get to know the schedules, she says, of the lawn maintenance people, because usually when the neighbors have their lawn done, usually it's at the same time every week, right? The crew shows up at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday or at 8 a.m. on Friday. And she just says to her clients, I'm really sorry, I'm booked at 11 a.m. I have another session. Can we do it at 12:30? So she kind of tells little white lies to work around the schedule that she's figured out. She's got a big, awesome booth now, so I don't imagine she has to worry about it so much anymore. But I think that that's funny. She would just kind of keep a schedule and just tell the clients that she was booked.
I still do the same thing if I have a doctor's appointment, or they don't need to know my private life, so I simply say that I have a previous booking, which is true, just not a voice booking.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't ever lie.
Yeah, you're not lying, really. I'm with you. I'm with you.
There you go. Now I just have to keep the geese quiet.
Thankfully, that's just a seasonal thing, though. So,
yes.
Bill in Denver says many of his VO clients know that they need to get a good pair of headphones or some sort of decent speaker for playback, listening to takes. You know what, Bill? In my experience, you know how many? I'm convinced that most of my auditions and even most of my final files for broadcast, when the casting director or the client's first hearing them, undoubtedly they're being listened to on those teeny tiny little tinny speakers in a laptop or in an iPad. So I'm not convinced that most VO clients do know that they need to get a good pair of headphones. Anybody out there have any experience with, a client saying that the quality of a take wasn't good enough, or they didn't like the way it sounded, and then you found out that they were listening to it on a pair of laptop speakers? I'm just trying to unmute some people that have arrived. A couple of people are saying, can you please turn off my mute? And Lynn, you are not muted at my end. You just need to unmute yourself using that little icon in the lower left-hand corner of your Zoom meeting window. Sorry, just unmuting people here. So again, anybody else have any experience with the quality of the playback equipment that our clients are using when they're listening to our auditions or they're listening to our final files?
Graham, this is Randy.
Hey, Randy.
Texas. And I don't have any direct experience with issues with that doing voiceover, but I spent a long time as a video editor, and we used near field speakers, and actually we used the smallest speakers we could get, because what we wanted to do was emulate what the end viewer was going to be listening to, whatever it was we were putting out on. And typically that was going to be on, at the time, a television or an LCD monitor with relatively small speakers.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why, the infamous Oratones, which are these really crappy little 4-inch speakers, they were notorious for being in every recording studio in the world back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, because the recording engineers knew that the music that they were recording and mixing was going to be listened to on really crappy car stereos.
Yeah, exactly. Our control room would have huge JBL studio monitors in them, but at the end of a session, the producer, the creative director of the agency, whoever we were working for, would always say, "Okay, now let's play it back on what's actually going to be listened to."
Yeah, exactly. And when I think back to like my father's 1973 Mercury Marquis station wagon, with the fake wood panel sides and stuff. When I remember that, I think that there was one single like 4x6-inch oval speaker in the center of the dash for the AM radio, and that was about it. So there was a reason why they were listening to the final mixes of music and of commercials on really crappy speakers in studio. But as I said, I'm still convinced that the majority of the auditions that I put out there are being listened to and evaluated on laptop speakers, which makes me crazy, but I'm convinced that's what happens.
Graham?
Yes. Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill from Denver. What I'm getting from my clients is you cannot rely, especially on those tinny laptop speakers or tablet speakers, to get the full quality of your sound. That's why I propose to most of my clients, get a great pair of headsets and or an external speaker. Comments, please.
I see that Cliff has joined us, and Cliff, you're a guy who has certainly listened to literally tens of thousands of auditions in your career, and you have produced thousands of commercials, and lots of clients. What are these clients listening to our auditions on? He says he has no mic. I'll wait for him to. Oh, earbuds, he says. Earbuds. Crazy. I'm just trying to keep up with unmuting people as they join us here. We're up to almost 50 people online, which is awesome. Who else has got a question for us tonight? Who else has any sort of question, any comment on home recording? Anything to do with hardware or software or microphones, acoustical treatment?
Hi, Graham.
Hey, Pat.
I did a program that actually included my microphone stand. How do I know if that's a good setup?
All right, just give me a second here. Okay, sorry. I was distracted by some background noise there. Can you ask that question again, please?
Yes. When I did some training, the microphone package was all together. It was a part of the package. So how do I know if my microphone setup is a good setup?
Well, why don't you tell us what the models are, and I'm sure there's lots of opinions here. We can give you a hand.
A Scarlett IO2.
Yeah, that's a perfectly fine audio interface.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
And that's the microphone as well as the Scarlett brand?
Yes, the microphone stand, the pop filter.
Yeah, so that's by a company called Focusrite. Is it say Focusrite on it somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Focusrite Scarlett, the original Focusrite preamps were designed all the way back in the 1970s by a guy named Rupert Neve, who's this famous audio engineer, recording guru, who still he's still alive. He's still I think he's in his late 80s or early 90s and still is designing mic preamps and things like that. But certainly Focusrite, which the stuff is all designed in England. Most of the stuff is manufactured offshore now in China, but it's being manufactured to British design and British specifications. And most people have very, very positive things to say about Focusrite products and the Scarlett line in general. There's no concerns, no one goes, oh, that stuff's gross. That stuff always breaks down, or no one says that about Focusrite. It sounds good and it's dependable.
Great. The only issue I have is I took my microphone off, and when I went to attach it back to my microphone stand, I twisted the one screw, for want of a better words, too hard, and it broke off. So right now my microphone is just lying on my counter.
I have also heard fairly good things about Focusrite when it comes to customer service. So I'm sure that if you were to get a hold of the customer service department, I'm not sure if you just go to their website and go to, who's responsible for customer service in the US for them. I'm sure that they would send you a replacement screw either for free or for, a nominal price. You might want to check that out because they do have a reputation for good customer service.
Will do. Thanks so much.
Fantastic.
Hi, this is Anthea from Illinois.
Hello, how are you doing, Anthea?
Good. How are you, Graham?
Fantastic.
I have a question that Carol Monda might be able to help me with. It's an audiobook, or anyone else. I'm trying to figure out how to more effectively set up. It's like I've got a great microphone. I've got, my husband does all the tech geek stuff, but it's the layout situation I'm having, because I've got a screen for the punch and roll, and eventually I'm supposed to get a one of those, I believe it's an iPad, like a touch iPad to turn the page. Right now I'm using paper pages on a towel-covered metal music stand. And I have a gaming, what they call a gaming hand control that does the work, but it's just a matter of the physical layout. What is the easiest physical layout to work with at a desk or on a stool? Right now I'm away from the computer because when I do it, I'm usually away from the front of the computer. I'm on a stool on the side watching the computer that's on a desk that is catty-cornered. This is not it's effective right now. It's kind of working, but it just seems like it's uncomfortable. And so I wanted to make it so that it was just a more physically easy situation to be in.
Well, I will turn it over to Carol. Carol, do you have any thoughts on, like, when you go about reading an audiobook, narrating an audiobook, are you using like an iPad or some other form of electronic tablet, or are you reading from paper?
I definitely suggest an iPad as soon as you can afford to get one, because not only is it easier and takes less time for you to record because you're not making the page noises, but also most of the reason people get iPads who are narrators, audiobook narrators, is because there's this great program called iAnnotate, little I, big A, notate. iAnnotate. It's like $10 or $15, and you basically drag tools onto the side of where the text is, and you can underline and highlight and use a pencil marker, you know, a tool that looks like a pencil, acts like a pencil. So with your stylus, you can prep a book so efficiently. And anytime you go back to prep or to look at it again, you can make any changes with, you know, very little chicken scratching that you'll get ultimately with paper. That would be my big selling point for it.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Where would I put that in the scheme of things? You know, setting up the basic physical space.
Yeah, of course, I'd like to see a picture of what you are referring to. But for example, it seems to me it would be very good if you could have your laptop or whatever it is that you're viewing your track on which you're recording fairly close to you, so that you can manipulate and make the edits, you know, in a facile, quick way. And then to the right or left, or if you have a shelf above, that's where I would put the iPad. Some people just put it right in front of the computer, and they just sort of snake their arm around to the keyboard to make any adjustments during the recording. But I think it's more important that you have, you know, because the iPad also allows you to enlarge the text, even if it is somewhat, you know, a little distant from you, you should be able to set it in a way that you can read it easily. And those things you won't have to change as much as obviously the recordings, you know, the recording issues that come up every 2 seconds if you're me. No, I'm kidding. But yeah.
Thank you.
And
Sure.
actually, John, I just want to pop in for a second. John Bowers mentioned as well that there are like Bluetooth accessories out there that are pedal systems that allow you to flip the page on an iPad just by tapping your foot. So you might want to look into one of those types of systems as well. The specific one that John was recommending was called Page Flip Firefly. Page Flip, all one word, Firefly. And John, maybe I can get you to type it into like a web address or something into the chat box, and you can share it with everybody. But I have seen these foot pedals in use for advancing pages. Very cool. Very, very slick.
Wow.
Thank you.
I would hope that Cliff and you, Graham, might have some comments too about proximity or just about layout. Of course, every space is different, but I'm just wondering if there's like a rule of thumb that you always follow when you set up studios for other people or for yourself.
I'm not sure. Cliff, have you logged back in with audio?
I have indeed.
There you are. Well, I'm certainly going to defer to Cliff Zellman, who's one of America's most talented when it comes to home studio setups. I'll certainly defer to Cliff when it comes to answering that question of Carol's.
Well, I think when it comes to placement, keep it below eye level. You know, any place that's comfortable. If you're going to be looking up to an iPad, you're going to get a lot of eye fatigue. You'll get headaches and it'll become uncomfortable. So at eye level or lower, you know, you're talking to a guy that's pushing 61, so I'm real fond of 18-point font. And everything that Carol said was excellent. I hope everybody wrote that down, because that really sounds like the way to go. I've always been a big proponent of pencil and paper, but that's when I'm directing a script that has 8 or 9 lines or 12 lines in it. I like the talent to take notes, you know, during direction. But when it comes to audiobooks, you know, the iAnnotate and being able to mark on the iPad, have it switch to text. I believe it can do that. You can write it in by hand and then it'll recognize text. Carol, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
You're right.
Okay. And that way it's super clean. So yay, Carol, that's it. The only thing that I would add is, you know, eye level or below to cut the stress.
Yeah, that was a really good point, Cliff. I should have clarified that, of course, it shouldn't be a shelf that's, you know, going to stretch your neck, but it shouldn't be too low that you're clicking down your neck.
No.
Yeah.
Very good. And Cliff, so good to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thanks for welcoming me. I got a little break here, so I thought I'd jump in and see my buddies.
Who else has got some questions for us tonight on home recording? Anything to do with home recording?
Hi, Graham.
Hello, Haley.
From snowy Alberta. I'm ignoring it.
It's still, ignoring it doesn't make it go away though, Haley. It doesn't shovel itself.
In my world, it's very helpful right now. I can't wait to see a blade of grass. I do have a question, and it's something that's come up in a past webinar chat. And I did write this down. It had to do with a plugin for debreathing.
Mm-hmm.
I use Pro Tools in my studio, and the one that was recommended was Waves. I'm wondering if that is the ideal plugin for Pro Tools. And part two of my question, just to throw it out there, is with regards to directed sessions from your home studio. Considering investing in some type of setup that would allow me to maybe have a monitor right in the booth that would accommodate a Skype session or something of that nature. Just wondering if people have experience with that, if it's a good investment, or just using, Skype off your phone, maybe that works just as well.
Well, before I turn it over to Cliff Zellman, I'll tell you that I use the Waves Debreath plugin practically every day in my workflow. I find it works very, very well. But again, Cliff, I'll defer to his advice because he's the guru when it comes to this stuff. Cliff, your thoughts?
I think the Waves Debreather is excellent. Although, everybody beware, it's basically a kind of a custom noise gate. It looks for a threshold. When the audio is below that threshold or above that threshold, it will either, open up the gate and allow the sound to go through or shut it down. You got to be careful, though, to strap a plug-in across 5, 10, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, however long, your sections would be. To trust it, it's kind of chancy. When I do short spots, 30-second, 60-second spots, I'm sorry, Cynthia, you want to jump in?
I'm sorry, I just choked.
Oh, no. When
Problems of having the mic on.
I'll highlight the breath and lower the volume through clip gain, which is a hidden little volume control that actually changes the volume of the wave rather than the volume of the channel, which is really kind of neat because it rewrites the wave. But deep breath is good. Here's a little secret to just about everything when it comes to processing. Dial it in until you hear it, and then back it back a little bit. So if you really hear it shutting down, open it up a little bit more. It's like I said, it's risky to trust a plugin, for any length of time to do exactly what you want. So, but as far as deep breath goes, it's excellent. Learn it, play with it. And like I said, when you hear it working, back it off a little bit.
Thanks, Cliff. That's great advice.
Yeah. And Haley, what was part two of your question?
Oh, just with regards to directed sessions that might be over a Skype session, if it would be worth investing in maybe putting even a computer monitor right in the booth. I've kind of just been using my phone, to be honest, and positioning it, and it works fine, but it is, a little less hands-free, that kind of thing. And I'm wondering if anybody else has any just clever solutions or.
There is there's an adapter that you can apply to, that you can put onto your mic stand that will hold your phone. If you bring in another monitor, you have a real good chance of introducing more noise. Noise that you may not hear. There may be 20,000 cycles or 16,000 cycles. Although I don't know if they're coming up on computer monitors. They certainly used to back in the day of CRT monitors, the old TV tubes. But, the less in the booth, the better. And if you can position a microphone stand to hold your phone, it's beautiful. And phones are gorgeous. I mean, they look terrific. So stick with the phone. Keep it easy. Keep it simple.
Yeah, it kind of may be
warm up your room too. It'll heat up your room too.
It kind of may be the low rent version of a foam patch, but it works just fine. I know many, many people, and I'm talking high end voice actors that, stick one earbud in their ear, and that's how they listen to direction from their client. They don't choose to get a whole lot fancier than that.
low rent. Have you guys priced a Galaxy 8 or a Galaxy 9? Those guys are $1,000. That ain't low rent. Those are really good cameras, and they're silent. They can, you can plug your charger into it. Don't worry about losing power, and they stay cool. So stick with the phone, face to face, Skype, Zoom, stuff like that works great.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
A question that came from. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm wondering, Cliff, when the Wi-Fi is on, though, don't they say, it could contribute to surge and buzzings and things?
I've never experienced it. I got really good internet here.
Okay.
Of course, your connectivity is going to be dependent upon your internet connection. So if you've got a great internet connection, you shouldn't have a problem. If you don't have a great internet connection, that might be your problem to solve first.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, Graham.
Yeah, actually, Carol, that's a very good point. The hands-free phones do not work for this purpose, and that's because hands-free phones often do introduce buzzing in, it happens right here in my studio all the time. You can use your cell phone, no problem, but don't use a hands-free phone that's operating like at 5 gigahertz or something like that, which is pretty typical for today's hands-free phones. It will often introduce buzzing in your audio it'll ruin a take. So hands-free phones are not a good idea. Use your cell phone. Is there any kind of training? This is a question coming from Paula. Any kind of training generally on how to use plugins, how to do, compression and use EQ and debreathing and things like that? Paula says she hasn't used plugins before and doesn't know where to go to learn how to use them.
YouTube. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of YouTube programs showing how to use plugins. Most of them are pretty good because, otherwise they wouldn't last. People would rag on them and say, you don't know what you're doing. But the stuff that is on YouTube that's been around for a while is pretty good. Also, before you start using plugins, learn what those plugins are. And our good buddy, Mr. Dan Friedman, wrote a terrific book called Voiceover from an Audio Engineer's Perspective. Check it out. Before you start using plugins, learn what a compressor is, how it works, how an EQ works, the difference between a graphic EQ and a parametric EQ. It's not that difficult. Stay up late a couple of nights, watching YouTube videos. That's really the place for free, and instantaneous. Type in the plugin, bam, you'll have dozens of guys, usually with British accents, talking real quick and moving real fast, but keep an eye on it. If you're looking for an audio engineering school to attend, Full Sail in Florida is excellent.
Full Sail is right? Fullsail.
Yeah, they have schools, I think pretty much all over the country, but I think they're mainly out of Florida. Very pricey, but really, really good. I mean, you walk out of there, you're a Grammy award-winning engineer.
Cliff, a question from Joy. Is there a plugin that you would trust to take out mouth clicks?
No.
Okay.
No. Because a mouth click is such a quick transient, and they're usually pretty loud. A gate's going to open them up. Try to correct it organically, whatever that may take. Some say green apples. There's thousands of homemade recipes to get rid of mouth click. They're very easy to view. If you're using an editor that you're familiar with, listen down, hear the mouth click, highlight the little section, blow it up as much as you can, highlight the click, bring the level down, or just erase it completely. But to really, catch them all and to not clip something that's not supposed to be clipped, that's really the challenge. And, man, you audiobook guys are I bow to you, having to edit 2-3 hours worth of VO. It's very difficult. But, doing it by hand and just kind of blowing up that region, and you can see it.
Do you have any experience, Cliff, with like ozone, like isotope, like those?
I'm not an isotope guy.
You just
I've
don't
heard amazing things about it. And please, if anybody's here, jump in and talk about the wonders of isotope, because I know a lot of people absolutely love it. I just have, there you go. Dan Friedman's voiceover from an audio engineer's perspective. Excellent book. You can get it on Amazon. But I'm not I'm more of a UAD guy. I've got a lot of the universal audio plugins, if not all of them.
Who else has some questions for us tonight on audiobook narration, on home recording and hardware, software, interfaces, microphones?
Let me jump in real quick here if I can.
Go ahead.
Before I logged off the previous time and got on with the microphones, folks were talking about monitors, and I threw in earbuds. When I send out an audition, time's usually a factor, so I'm going to want to hear that audition as quickly as possible. I'm going to want to hear it on whatever I've got to listen to, and there's a real good chance that's going to be on my phone. So when you send out an audition, not only listen to your monitors or your headphones, but make an MP3, email it to yourself, and then play it back on your phone, listening on earbuds. And it'll tell you, is it comfortable to listen to? Is it a good level? Am I hearing high pitch, a lot of, is it very tinny sounding? And psychoacoustics plays in a lot when being chosen for an audition. So not only listen on your monitors and your headphones, but shoot yourself an MP3 and listen on earbuds, because a lot of folks are listening on earbuds. I know it's terrible, but it's the nature of our technology.
Someone was going to jump in there with another question.
That was JD, and it wasn't a question. It was there's a guy on YouTube. His name is Mike Russell, and like Cliff said, he's got one of those British accents. He works with Music Radio Creative. I just pasted his link into the chat. If you want education on plugins and DAWs and technique, he's one of the better YouTube video purveyors out there. So you don't have to go running around looking for too many things. He's been on YouTube for a long, long time.
Yeah, if he's no good, he's not going to be on for a long time.
Exactly.
And of course, he's got the British accent, so he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly right.
The other one is Pro Tools Expert, and you don't have to use Pro Tools in order to take advantage of many of his videos, even if you use Adobe Audition or Audacity, because many of his reviews and his educational videos are generic beyond just to Pro Tools. And he also has a British accent, if I remember right, and it's literally Pro Tools Expert is the name of the channel on YouTube. We have time to sneak in probably one or two more questions. Who's got a question for us on home recording technology? Joy is asking, can anyone recommend a good wall-mounted mic stand? And by that, I think that she's meaning like a boom arm, because she goes on to say, I'm worried about spring vibration and the strength of the arm. I know that Rode has George Whittam often recommends a boom arm from Rode, which has a clamp mount, it has a screw mount to desktops, but it also can mount on walls and on ceilings. So go to like Sweetwater or B&H Photo Video and do a search for Rode Boom Arm, and it'll come up. Go ahead, Cliff.
I have one, and I absolutely love it, man. I could not imagine having a desktop mic stand. You pull it over. I'm also using a 416, so there's not a lot of weight. But I also have a U47, which is a pretty beefy microphone, and this will hold it. Now, the spring noise, you guys hearing that? Probably. Yeah. You can get a noodle, like a swimming pool noodle. Go to an electronics store, and they have all different sizes, and you can just kind of wrap it around there. There's a slice down all the way down one side. You just kind of open it up and wrap it around it, and that'll get rid of the spring sound. And yes, spring sound is definitely something to consider when getting a boom microphone like this.
So Cliff, just hang on a second here. You use a U47 to talk to us right now on?
No, I'm using a 416 right now.
A U47. Unbelievable. Only Cliff Zellman would use a $16,000 microphone
I use it for singing, and I use it for background vocals. And when I go into studios, I take it with me. Actually, it's locked up pretty hardcore in a case in a secret closet.
I'm sure that it is. I would hope so.
Put my kids through college. Wait, they've already graduated. Oh no.
More questions. It's 8:56, so we have time for one more question before we wrap it up tonight. Oh, and Joy, you were specifying, does it have the strength for a heavy mic? A U47 is a very big, meaty microphone.
It's about 2.5 pounds.
Yeah. If this Rode boom arm can hold a U47, it can.
What does she have?
It can hold anything you'll throw at it.
Joy, what do you have, Joy?
See if she is going to text me here with the. Okay, well, we'll wait for Joy to respond on that with regards to what mic she has. And who's got one more question that we can sneak in before we're done for the night?
Graham, I typed something in there.
Hey, Bev.
Hey, Bev.
Hi, Cliff. And I'm asking because Cliff's here.
Where is it?
Can I just ask it?
Yes, of course.
That's good.
What would be I have a Rode arm, and I have a Neumann attached to it, but I have purchased a 416. And a 416 isn't going to be right for every job, so I want to keep my Neumann in the booth, my 416 in the booth. Do I just get a double arm onto my Rode arm, like a double mic? I don't, Cliff, you know
I
me.
would have two. I'd have two separate.
Have two separate arms?
Yeah, because what's going to happen is the weight of both of those microphones are going to meet wherever it's connected. If it's connected to your desk, it's going to put pressure on the clamp. If it's connected to the wall, gravity will eventually pull it down. I would get two separate mics, boom arm. I mean, they're what, $29, $30?
Yeah, and I've got the room, so okay.
Yeah, you have two of them definitely. And how awesome would that look too?
I know. Well, I have two monitors, so I would have two mics, two monitors. I have to really be careful not to hit things. But.
So no weight problem with the 87 and the boom.
Who, me?
Yeah, none.
I don't have an 87.
Oh, I thought you said you had two microphones.
I do. I have a 102.
Okay, that's a heavy mic.
Yeah.
And no problem. It holds fast.
Oh, none at all.
Good. I love my mics.
And Cliff, Joy got back and says that the current mic she's using is fairly light. It's a Lewitt 240, which is a really
nice microphone.
Mic, actually. I like that mic.
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem.
She wants to be prepared for anything, she says. So
that's a great microphone.
Yeah. I like the Lewitts a lot. And it's one of those sleeper brands, Cliff. No one really talks about them very much, but
yeah, they don't. That and Lawson, people don't talk about Lawson, but they're both really very good microphones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Awesome conversations, lots of great questions tonight, and we got some really great answers. So Carol Monda and Cliff Zellman, thank you so much for showing up and sharing your expertise. It's much appreciated when you come in and give us your best advice. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot, Graham. And you look great too, buddy.
Thank you. I've learned so much.
Looking healthy.
Thank you so much, Cliff.
You are.
Don't forget that these OpenMicVO episodes do get posted to YouTube. It usually takes me till Tuesday to get them up there. Just search for OpenMicVO, all one word. You'll find our page if you wanted to go back and reference anything that we spoke about tonight. Until next Sunday, work hard, audition a ton, and win lots of work. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.